Hey, Steve Magnante here at High Octane Classics in Auburn, Massachusetts with the 1968 Chevy Camaro, one of the most popular American cars of the 1960s and even now, really. Now here's the thing, 1967 was the first year for the Camaro and sales were 220,917 units. That was pretty popular. And over in Fordland, Mustang sales fell by 22% when the Mustang had a contender and a competitor in the Camaro in 1967, the first model year for a Camaro. So the pony car wars were really heating up. And again, the Camaro was very much like a Mustang in so many ways. It had a long hood, short deck, which was really the recipe for a pony car. And of course, the term pony is a reference to the Ford Mustang, which is a horse. We know that. Now, of course, the Camaro takes its name from either a Navy warship, a small maneuverable gunship, or it's also French for a little friend. Either way, you can decide which one you like best. Now, this is a 68. It's a V8 car. It has the 124 VIN prefix. 123 would be a 6-cylinder car. So this was born a V8 for sure. It's been upgraded with a bunch of things that make it extra cool. The SS emblems and, of course, the cowl induction hood. This is steel, not a fiberglass replica. Of course, not a factory piece. You can get these aftermarket hoods today, the cowl induction steel hood, which is a nice touch. These didn't appear until 1969 on the Camaro Z28 and SS as the ZL2 hood option. But again, this is a steel reproduction, not a fiberglass wannabe, so it's kind of cool. It'll keep its shape and not warp with time. So it's a great looking car. This one has disc brakes up front, the drums in the back, which is factory stuff. Nothing wrong with that. And just a great classic design. And again, Mustang sales fell by 22% in 1967 thanks to a newcomer on the block, the Camaro. So 1968 Camaro sales rose by 6.4% for a total of 235,151 units, a majority of which were V8 cars because people wanted some power with the sexy looks of the Camaro. In addition to the modern ZL2 style cowl induction hood, which again is a steel replica of the original from 1969, but designed for a 67 or 68 Camaro like we have here. Another detail on these things that's very popular is the D80 chin spoiler, also the trunk spoiler. We'll get to that in a minute, but the chin spoiler is actually a plastic item right here. So you can rub that against a curb without deforming it or causing much damage. But again, that adds a sexy look, sort of a bit of an SCCA Trans Am vibe to the Camaro. So under the hood of this, what do we have? Well, let's see. Okay, it was born a V8 car. This is a small block of some sort. Looks to have a small Holley 4-barrel carburetor on it. Exhaust headers. Nice to see that. The exhaust manifolds are nice, but the headers wake up another, 10 or 20 horsepower. Good to see that. Some nice upgrades under the hood here. Some show car hose coverings and stuff. Nothing wrong with that. And it has chromed pulleys for the water pump and harmonic balancer and power steering pump. And yes, it is a power steering car, which is a nice thing. And of course, an aftermarket aluminum cross-flow fan with an electric booster right here, so it'll stay cool when you're driving into the cruise. I like some details here, really. The body-colored firewall, nothing wrong with that. It's not a factory touch. And again, the front frame is also painted a metallic blue, which is a nice detail for, car show points. Get an extra trophy or two with the presentation on this one. But again, the cowl induction hood on this one here is not functional, but it does clear the air cleaner. And going down the road, I imagine it does allow some cooler air to enter the carburetor inlet. And another thing too is, by allowing the underhood temperature to vent, about 20 degrees lower than if the hood was solid and that heat would build up. So it's a functional item as well as a beauty item. It's a great look. Okay, let's look inside this Camaro and see what kind of transmission we have. Before I open the door, one thing we'll notice that was new for 68 on Camaro was the lack of door vent windows, which were present in 1967. 68 brought Astro ventilation, thus no more vent windows in the door. Some people were appalled by it. I kind of like it. You get better ventilation this way with the Astro vents underneath the dashboard. But inside we have something that's kind of a welcome surprise. And this is not factory, but rather a velour interior with tuck and roll and buttoned pleated seats that are done in appealing color-matched blue vinyl, or not vinyl, it's a velour, like a velvet kind of a texture. And the doors are also done, the door panels, upper and lower, and the armrests are also done in this stitched motif that it adds a touch of Cadillac Eldorado to the inside of this Camaro. And of course the dashboard, we see right here the Astro ventilation ducts right here on each side of the dashboard. on both sides, and that was not something you'd find in 1967 because that was new for 68, the Astro ventilation. But again, the vent windows were deleted for 1968, giving the Camaro a slightly sportier vibe. And of course, the dashboard on this is largely stock. I see an AM radio, a Delco radio, I believe, right there. Nothing wrong with that. That's a fine thing. Aftermarket gauges for the oil pressure, water temperature, and volts onto the dash. And most importantly, in my book, a 4-speed with a Hurst shifter right there. There's a manual transmission in this one behind that small block. So it adds an extra element of driver-vehicle connection. You know, the clutch pedal, the accelerator pedal, just good stuff right there. You can bang gears in your Camaro like these were born to be. Before I move on, let's look at the headliner. Look at this. The diamond pleated headliner. You wouldn't even see that until you looked up, but it's very much like a Cadillac Eldorado from the mid-1970s. Kind of classy and adds an element of luxury and comfort to the inside of this Camaro. At the back of this 1968 Camaro is the almighty D80 trunk spoiler, which kind of goes hand in hand, or nose to tail, with the D80 chin spoiler we saw earlier a minute ago. And here it is right here. It's fiberglass, it's plastic, it's not steel, but again, it's a very attractive design. And the SS stripes correctly go over the spoiler and then down to the back of the car. SS, of course, blacked out taillight bezels on the outside. And nice to see a nice attention to detail on this. And of course, the SS logo covers the rear-mounted gas tank, and on a Mustang there would be a cable here to attach it to the car, but not so much on Camaro land. I guess Midnight Auto Supply would steal the Mustang logo gas caps in 1965, so they added a cable. Not so fast in 1967 and 68 on Camaro. They didn't get a cable, as far as I know. Okay, so this also is interesting. Inside, does the trunk match the interior? And yes, it does. There's more of that velour diamond stitched lining on the trunk mat, and of course under the deck lid right here. You know, it's pretty well decked out for the car show. This is the kind of stuff that impresses people at the car show and builds another step toward getting a trophy. If that's your bag, that's fine. Nicely done. And of course, the more important thing to me is what rear axle is under this Camaro. More often than not, you'd find a 10-bolt rear axle, not a big deal. This is a 12-bolt, which is a good thing. 350 with a 4-speed transmission. The rear axle with a power shift could be damaged unless it's a 12-bolt. And of course, there's probably a positive traction in there for both tires to get bite when this Camaro scoots down the road ahead of the Mustang in the next lane, let alone Barracuda, which was a 3rd place finisher in the pony car wars. You know, Barracuda, Mustang, Camaro, the big dogs right there. So Camaro, a classic pony car, and again, it's all about the long hood, short deck proportions of the body. And GM really knocked it out of the park with these. The Mustang's pretty, but I dare say that the Camaro's beautiful. Nice cherry on top of this Camaro are the rally wheels, which appeared in 1967 on Corvettes, and of course in 15-inch rim diameters, and on the Z28. But 14-inch wheels like these are very popular add-ons for anybody who owns a GM product or Camaro. Now these are an interesting wheel because these have the 1967 only small center cap. For 1968, the sombrero cap came along, which was actually a taller version of the same basic idea, but again, very visible when the car's going by, or when they're coming off it, you're banging gears at the drag strip. That's why the drag strip officials don't like to have center caps on hot rods with slicks and stick shifts, because they sometimes come off and go into the stands, which is not cool. But these won't come off. That's all good. But again, a beautiful example right here of the 68 Camaro, the car that really took a bite out of Mustang sales. In fact, Mustang sales fell 22% in 1967 when the Camaro burst onto the scene, and Mustangs never really recovered. Both very popular cars, but again, the Camaro dynasty was just getting started here in 1968, the 2nd year of the Camaro revolution. To learn more about this car, you can go to the High Octane Classics website and see the photo gallery.